Welcome to Oliver's Art. I'm Weldon Oliver, and today we'll be painting a glacier scene over a lake. What I've done is I have taken white and primed my canvas first with a large brush, just a thin layer of white, and now let's begin. I'm going to first pick up a little bit of white and French ultramarine blue on this brush. And I want to come in here and scumble that beautiful Oregon sky. Going to pick up a little more blue and take it right down in here where I know the lake is going to go. I just keep building my value as I come down. Beautiful Oregon blues as we get in the summertime. I'm going to darken the top of that sky a little bit. And then I'm just going to smooth it out with X strokes. French ultramarine blue is a very great color for just putting in a quick sky. A little white. I'm going to soften up the middle for light a little bit. And now I'm going to add with a fan brush some quick clouds. A little white on the brush. Bring a cloud puff over here on this side. A little more white. A little stronger, I think, in the sky. There we go. Just as I come across, I'm just adding the movement. A beautiful, beautiful summer day. Those lazy, softly flowing clouds that just float by behind everything. Also, it's not uncommon, if I take a little rose, to see a little bit of color in the sky. Rose and a little yellow, and I just have a little bit of peach tone in the sky. Just a little bit reminder of some of that morning light. I'm going to bring it on down here. Underneath the clouds, I'm going to come down to where I know the water's going to be. A little cadmium yellow deep, and rose. White makes a deep peach. I'm just going to drag it where I know I'm going to find some of that on the water. And I'll be adding more things later. But there's a glow in the sky on a beautiful, beautiful spring day. Next, I'm going to introduce the mountain that's in the background. Nice soft sky, just like we have here. A little bit darker at the top, a little whiter, more glowing toward the bottom. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white on my knife, a little bit of purple, a little black. I come up with a gray, the kind of a gray that allows distance, and that would be purple and black. And I can't help but notice that a lot of our glaciers just slope down a little bit. I use the knife to just gently pull the color back. And those few strokes outline what you see against the sky so often. I'm going to go ahead and add something that I often see around Oregon. There's a little bit of a bump there, and I'll just make the tip a little bit higher like that. There's something. There we go. And now picking up the big brush that I blended with, I'm just going to wipe it out. And I'm going to smooth that color with very light strokes. Down in the middle, out to the side. Leave the top kind of sharp. And what I end up with is that faded gray distance, for which Oregon and so many other Pacific Northwest states are famous for. Beautiful colors back there. Wiping off the knife, and to pick up a little bit of white on the long edge of it, and begin introducing the glacier. And that would be that beautiful white snow that just sort of runs inside. It's a slow tapping motion with a pull on the inside. And I see the broken snow and the rocks and the crests that we normally get. A little more white up here. On this little outcropping is another edge. The white just blends into the gray. If I take a little bit of white and I mix it over here with my French ultramarine blue, I come up with kind of a light blue color for the reflective side. That colder side of the snow. And now with a little white, maybe an accent or two along a ridge. Here comes a ridge. There's some inside. It does take a little bit of white to do some of these. The white is a little bit thick in places. Well, snow is both smooth and rough at the same time. Again, wiping out the big brush. I'm going to very gently just smooth a little bit of what happens at the bottom of the hill. There, just creating a little bit of that distance we see as we drive up our beautiful coastal highways and have a look. Little white. Again, a little bit of that peach, cadmium, deep yellow, rose, white. And there's always a little bit of a fog or a little mist that glows on the bottom of hills, especially the glaciers. And I'm just rolling it in there. This morning, sunlight in the sky just caught a little of that morning fog. Add a little more accent up above. Wipe the brush out. And I'm going to just smooth by rolling the top edge of the fog or the mist against our glacier. Stretch it all out here. There's the beginning of that backdrop. We have a little bit of morning fog. Could be highlighted a little bit of light mist. A little bit of morning fog to go along with our glacier as we head up the road to our favorite fishing and camping spots. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's add our middle distance to our glacier scene. I'm going to reach over here and get a little bit of that purple gray, just a bit more purple in it, that we use for our mountain. Any kind of a scene where you have sloping foothills, they have a tendency to go under. Notice how the brush is in a vertical position. I'm just simply bordering where I know there has to be change in nature. There has to be change in nature at the bottom of the foothill, and it generally happens in and among the mist. I'm simply allowing the fan brush to create the beginning of those vertical trees in the background. I need the purple shadow under them. I know that purple doesn't look like anything. Also, if this is going to be water, I will pull a little bit of reflection down. I must have that purple shadow to use later. I'm just going to smooth this part out of it. And I can already begin to imagine where it's going to go. The next thing up is I need a little bit of French ultramarine blue inside. at the bottom edge of the trees. Again, this will be shadow, goes in the water. Very irregular. Why not take longer? The less detail back in the middle distance, the better off you are. You want the public and the viewer to look at it and focus on what goes out in the distance. How am I going to create the green on that? I'm going to get a little cadmium yellow deep and rub that into my French ultramarine blue, and that will come up a greener color, a little bit bluer, greener, grayer. And as I begin to introduce this color on top of all the purple and gray I have back here, it becomes easier to imagine the distance. And again, the light is not there. This is still in the shadow area, in the shadow of the blue-greens of our tall conifers, the forests we love. And down in the water, I would see the same color. And without detail. Use a large brush, smooth the water a little bit. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black now, and mixing it with a little of the purple, I'm going to come under and shadow darken even that area there. The black forms that layer of gray that I need to complete that back distance. See, once I begin to lay the dark in, along with the green, the illusion is more complete. Down here it's just shorter. I'm thinking of limbs, the forest floor, tree trunks. So there's vertical and horizontal shapes. And of course the same color would be down below. And still no light. Purely adding shapes. Now I'm going to get a little bit of white. I come back and mix it in my green that I made with cadmium yellow deep, French ultramarine blue, and here I'm going to touch on the sunlit side a little bit of the gray that goes. Once this gray highlight is created, it's much easier to see the middle distance. The trees standing up, outlining themselves against the base of our glacier. And there would be some of that color down in the water. It's not a very vivid green because it is in the background. I want to make it just a little bit stronger with the blue in the water so I can see it. So I've kept my middle distance down in the shadow. And I'm going to create water lines in a minute, but before I do that, I'm going to reach down on my palette and pick up just a little bit of phthalo blue. I'm going to use phthalo blue to deepen the color in the water so that it will contrast with the sky. Ah, there we go. By gently introducing a colder blue on the bottom, it's easier to see the lake up close. It's easier to imagine that it's closer to us. Go ahead and deepen the bottom of it. Now I have more than one color in the water. I'll even come up and maybe accent one corner of the sky a little bit, just to change the blue as it shifts across. I'm going to pick up my knife, get a little white on it, and introduce that shoreline that I know is back here. There. a few marks for any vertical trunks that show through. Okay. Before I leave this area, though, I need to pick up my fan brush and wipe it out and do something about the reflection of the mountain in the water, because we do very often see that. I'm going to start with the gray purple I used in the mountain. Come here, and I'm just going to get its basic shape. And gently create the value. While maintaining some of the watercolor in it. In a lake that has any wind blowing in it, the water will be diffused. I'm going to pick up a little white now and come down some of the reflections that I see on the edge and within the mountain. And again, I'm not trying to fill in the whole area. I just want the suggestions where they belong. And I do need a little of that blue that I first had on that side, where the snow comes in. I may need to use phthalo blue and white for that, just to have it show up. There. And now I'm going to take the brush and I have to very softly allow this hard line art to blend into what I know belongs in the picture, and that is the smooth effect of water slightly moving, just slightly going with the wind. Not a bit uncommon in our lakes around Oregon to have a blurred image of glaciers in water. I am going to accent the white a little bit. After blending it out, I have to go back and just find out where it goes and put the accents of the snow where I would see them. Always keeping in mind that the water is constantly moving. Once again, gently smoothing. Set this image into our lake here. All right. And we'll be right back to finish our Glacier Lake picture. Welcome back. Let's finish our beautiful glacier scene. I'm going to wipe off the knife real quick, get a little bit of white on it, and I'm going to create these water lines. Water lines happen due to wind and movement. And they basically cross all the lines of reflection that we have. And when they're in place, you can see the reflection in the water much more easily. This is what the wind does. The wind creates movement, and that creates shadows and lights in the water. They're not all one color. Blues and grays of water lines work just fine. And they're not all perfectly straight. As I said, they're made with wind and therefore they ripple. I'll wipe out the brush, fan brush. I'm picking up black now. I'm going to introduce what so often is around our lakes, the great big tall fir trees and pine trees. I have one there and another one that comes right down beside him. Again, very common in Oregon. Trees tend to cluster together. They have a tendency to be around most of the major highways and most of the places that are photographed. I'm using dark color here. I'm using black inside the tree because trees tend to be very thick and dark near the trunk inside. Most of the color of an evergreen is on the outside of the tree. That's where the green is. Inside they're quite dark. And we need that dark to show up here in the front as the foreground. I have a fir tree that comes down to the front here. I'm picking up another one. I'll even get a little bit of purple into this black. Another Douglas fir that hangs right here. They have a very distinct type of shape. A lot of leaning boughs that overlap one another. Wooded areas. Very picturesque. A little more purple, a little more black. Come over here and finish this one. I just use diagonal taps of the fan brush to make it work. Keep in mind that trees that are wind-blown in nature often are imbalanced. Limbs are broken. They're constantly competing for light and water. There's the outline of the tree trunks. While I have a moment, I'm simply going to wipe off the brush. I'm going to take my knife, get a little cadmium yellow deep and a little bit of the rose red, put them together, a little bit of white. That hard orange-brown color, I'm going to begin laying some of the trunk space inside. Usually some of the trunk in an evergreen can be seen if the tree is old enough. There. And they show fairly red. Wiping the brush out, I'm going to pick up a little white and a little yellow. Black and yellow make the pine needle green that we see so often around here. Black in the brush and black on the tree is going to help that. I'm just going to begin on the outside and come across the trunk and small ones in the middle of these large boughs. And you can see the beginning of light on the tree. The important thing is not to lose the dark. You need the dark in the tree. It certainly is not necessary to cover every tree branch with yellow light. Many of them are in shadow. Many of them are hidden behind one another. They overlap, they congregate a very great deal in our forests. The yellow and the black just do well together to create that kind of spontaneous effect. I'll even add just a little bit of it back here in the distance where trees would be closer. And of course there'd be a little bit in the water. To create that very special effect that we have. A little more yellow on the edges for new growth, where in particular the sun strikes. Again, being careful not to lose all my dark, to give the trees that close together look. And I believe that does it. Come and visit Oregon. with our beautiful glaciers and lakes. I'm Weldon Oliver. Thank you for painting with me with Oliver's Art.